A Mortal's Journey to Immortality Episode 350. In the previous episode, Han Li and the South Sea cultivators scoured the western seas in search of a dangerous flood dragon, only to realize too late that they had walked into a trap. Waves of demon clouds rolled in from all directions, revealing not one, but two powerful Grade 8 flood dragons leading an ambush. As panic spread through the ranks, Han Li soared into the sky, unveiling his true strength as a mid-nascent soul cultivator and stepping forward to confront a terrifying scarlet flame flood dragon. Their clash ignited the heavens, crimson lava clashing against Han Li's icy purple flames. Mountains of frozen light rising against towering waves of fire. Sensing danger, the flood dragon unleashed its full beast form in a desperate attempt to overwhelm Han Li with raw ferocity. At the end of the previous episode, the massive creature shrank into a streak of scarlet light, claws extended, lunging straight for Han Li's heart. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. When the scarlet flame flood dragon approached him, Han Li smiled. His sleeve trembled and a red light flew out before disappearing without a trace. The air around Han Li seemed to tremble as a faint thunderclap sounded from behind him. Almost instantly, a pair of silver-white wings unfurled from his back, gleaming brilliantly in the light. In the blink of an eye, he vanished from the flood dragon's sight just as its massive scarlet claws came crashing down. The dragon, a terrifying creature of fiery power, barely had time to react before it heard a soft, sharp shriek slicing through the air. A translucent red needle appeared suddenly at the side of the flood dragon. Moving with such silent swiftness it was almost invisible. This was no ordinary weapon, it was a needle refined from a crystallized demon core. Designed for precision strikes, the flames surrounding the flood dragon's body were the only thing protecting it. But they offered little comfort against such a targeted attack. When the needle struck, piercing through the dragon's face, it let out a roar of agony, trying desperately to shield itself with its claws as blood flowed freely. Though the needle was sharp, it was not yet powerful enough to severely wound the flood dragon. Han Li, however, had anticipated this. With a mental command, he caused the needle to expand several times its original size, magnifying the damage and ensuring that the dragon would feel the full effect. Before the flood dragon could regain control, Han Li reappeared, his movements fluid and lightning fast. A 3-meter-long golden streak shot from his sleeve directly at the beast. The dragon, ignoring the pain on its face, retaliated instinctively. Its tail swelled with light and swung violently in an attempt to crush Han Li. Han Li's eyes narrowed. As a worldly spiritual beast, the flood dragon was far quicker than ordinary cultivators in responding to lightning movement ambushes. With a subtle gesture, he redirected the golden streak to strike the dragon's tail. The golden sword streak cleaved through the red light surrounding the tail effortlessly. But the flood dragon was not defenseless. It reinforced its tail scales with spiritual power, turning them into crystalline armor that glimmered with a deep red brilliance. The collision was blinding, a mix of golden light and scarlet crystal fire. Han Li had to use his bright-sight eyes to observe the unfolding battle. His golden streak had pierced only partway through the tail, stopped by the dragon's bone. But he was not deterred. He commanded the flying sword to retract, but the tail held it firmly in place. A silent challenge. The flood dragon, confident in its strength, spat out a fist-sized pearl glowing with red energy, its demon core. This was a powerful artifact, the heart of its magic, and it posed a serious threat. Han Li's eyes gleamed as he recognized it instantly. The dragon intended to use this as both an offensive and defensive maneuver. A final gambit. Reacting swiftly, Han Li blurred into 3 identical copies of himself. The clones, indistinguishable from the real Han Li, each launched a golden sword streak toward the flood dragon. The dragon hesitated, forced to consider which of the 3 attacks was real. If it misjudged, even its claws and demon core might not save it. A thunderous impact shook the battlefield. The demon core intercepted one of the strikes, revealing the middle sword as real. Yet, the 2 remaining sword streaks found their mark, slicing through the dragon's claws and inflicting unbearable pain. The dragon screamed, a horrifying sound amplified by both fire and fury. In that critical moment, a surge of purple flame erupted beneath the flood dragon in the shape of a lotus. Freezing its movement, Han Li's sword streaks, infused with auric essence and channeled with almost all of his spiritual power, circled the dragon's head in unyielding precision. With a final, brilliant strike, the dragon's head was severed cleanly from its body. Lightning surged from the swords, forming a net around the corpse. From the severed neck emerged a miniature flood dragon. Attempting a desperate escape, Han Li was ready. He manipulated the lightning net to capture it, weaving it into a fist-sized golden ball. The dragon's soul struggled, spewing red flame, but it had no way to break free. Han Li summoned a jade bottle, drawing the golden ball inside and finally securing it. With the flood dragon defeated, Han Li exhaled, allowing himself a brief moment of relief. He retrieved the golden sword from the tail, preserved the head and body in a storage pouch, and carefully stored the masterless Grade 8 demon core in a jade box. The surrounding sea of flames and demon cloud, once sustained by the flood dragon's power, gradually dispersed. He turned his attention to the ongoing battles. Core formation cultivators fared well against the Grade 7 flood dragons, but their nascent soul stage leader faced grave danger. Han Li's eyes glinted with ice-cold resolve. Grade 8 demon beasts were rare, and he could not ignore such an opportunity. Yet before he could act, a transmission from Monarch Soul Divergence warned him not to act recklessly. The South Sea sect had already arrived and would not allow him to escape easily with such a prize. Han Li quickly verified the warning with his spiritual sense. He frowned, a hint of disappointment crossing his face. With the last remnants of the demon cloud fading, he chose prudence over greed. Han Li had no interest in what happened and simply flew deep into the ocean. He wanted to find an uninhabited spirit island so that he could begin to refine Monarch Soul Divergence's puppet. Han Li had already bought a map of the sea in advance. He followed a path that cultivators rarely traveled and found a small uninhabited island a month later. The island was modest, covering only 20 square kilometers, with a small, unremarkable spirit vein stretching for 4 kilometers. In a location closer to the mainland, such a vein might have attracted a small clan or been fiercely contested by wandering cultivators. Yet this island lay deep in a region where demon beasts roamed freely, making it too dangerous for ordinary humans. Even the higher-grade cultivators from larger clans would find this spirit vein of little interest. And its isolation far from any traveled sea route ensured it remained untouched. For Han Li, it was an ideal sanctuary. He flew to the small mountain at the center of the island. Surveying the terrain, the peak was just sufficient for his plans. With practiced precision, he released his flying swords, cutting a flat surface on the mountain top. Almost instantly, he summoned his hidden fortune mansion, which expanded into a small, exquisite immortal abode. Its structure was elegant yet sturdy, a perfect blend of utility and concealment. Han Li did not leave things to chance. He placed a concealment formation not only around the residence but also around the mountain itself. A thick white mist spread for 5 kilometers, shrouding the island and hiding his activities from any wandering cultivators or curious spirits. Once the mansion and defenses were in place, he carefully arranged his medicinal plants and spirit beasts into their designated rooms. Even the armored earth dragon was placed under strict restrictions before being stored in one of the beast rooms. The large number of materials he had brought were all safely secured in his hidden chamber, ready for the complex work that lay ahead. Once everything was in order, Han Li took a deep breath and placed the bamboo tube from his back in front of him. Calmly, he spoke. These materials are only enough for one attempt. If there are any errors during the refinement process, there won't be enough time to find a substitution. I also have no grasp on the chances of success. Monarch Soul Divergence's voice echoed inside his mind. I am well aware. Before you refine it, I will give you a detailed explanation of the refinement process and repeatedly test your understanding. Only once you've truly grasped the method will I have you start. Before we begin, take a look at this jade slip. It contains general information about my puppet. With a faint bang, a white jade slip shot out from the bamboo tube into Han Li's hand. Nodding with quiet appreciation, He sat down and immersed his spiritual sense into the jade slip. As time passed, Han Li's expression shifted from amazement to excitement, and finally to complete shock. The depth and precision of the puppet's design, along with the ingenuity of its potential abilities, left him in awe. After what seemed like hours, he withdrew his spiritual sense and let out a long sigh, sitting silently as his mind processed all the information. A quarter hour later, he opened his eyes and muttered, "Not bad. If I succeed in refining this puppet, its power will be unrivaled. With enough spirit stones, it could even rival a late nascent soul cultivator. However, there is one thing I am unsure of." Monarch Soul Divergence answered immediately. "Since I've given you the puppet formula, there is no need to hold back. Ask freely." Han Li frowned, his tone solemn. "According to all puppet formulas I've studied in the past, the higher the grade of the puppet, the stronger the soul required to fuse with it. But I feel that a demon beast's soul might not be sufficient for this puppet's grade. Even the grade 8 Scarlet Flood Dragon's soul would be inadequate." "Senior, you never mentioned this. Do you have something else in mind?" A faint chuckle echoed. "Ah, so that is your concern. I faced the same problem during my research. I was planning to explain it to you, so that you could refine the puppet with confidence." Han Li let out a dry laugh, skeptical yet curious. "Senior must be joking. To display the true might of this puppet, it would require the soul of a grade 9 demon beast. I doubt you have a solution for this." Monarch Soul Divergence's voice remained calm and assured. "There is no need for any demon beast soul. When the time comes, you will use my soul to refine the puppet." Han Li's shock was palpable. "Use Senior's soul?" Indifferently, the old cultivator replied, "Do you think my soul is inferior to that of a grade 9 demon beast?" "Of course not," Han Li said, his voice hesitant. "Senior originally cultivated to the late nascent soul stage and mastered the grade development techniques. Your spiritual sense would rival even that of a deity transformation cultivator. But, if your soul is fused into the puppet, will you lose the chance to reincarnate?" Monarch Soul Divergence laughed softly. "Of course, I plan to reincarnate, but there is no guarantee I will walk the path of cultivation again." Han Li's mind raced. Senior intends to fuse his soul into the puppet but still wishes to reincarnate. Could there be a technique that allows this? "Exactly right," Monarch Soul Divergence confirmed. "I discovered the soul division technique while trapped by the soul attachment technique for thousands of years. Ordinary soul splitting is incomplete, but this is genuine division. When the time comes, I will split my soul in two. One half, carrying most of my power, will fuse with the puppet. The other half, containing my memories and emotions, will disperse and allow me to reincarnate." Han Li was astonished. "But dividing one's soul, that must be incredibly difficult." "Do not worry," Monarch Soul Divergence reassured. "I am only dividing the power of my soul. It will not obstruct reincarnation. My soul's strength would dissipate regardless if I simply died of age." Han Li exhaled, finally feeling relief. "So that is the plan. Then I have no further questions." "Good," the elder replied. "Now I will explain the refinement process in detail. Part by part, the puppet consists of a dozen core components, each requiring specific materials." With his spirits roused, Han Li focused entirely on the explanation, immersing himself in the intricate details. Days passed with him rarely leaving the hidden chamber. He managed his mansion and creatures through massive ape puppets, attending to the medicinal plants and spirit beasts with meticulous care. He experimented with the Six-winged Frost Centipedes, feeding them snow soul pills along with rainbow skirt grass. While a single pill normally took 4 months to refine, the centipedes required only 1, and Han Li observed a noticeable improvement in the power of their glacial qi. The gold-devouring beetles, meanwhile, were fed rainbow skirt grass continuously, though they showed no immediate change, requiring his patience. One day, after completing a refinement of one of the puppet's parts, Han Li arranged the materials before him as per Monarch Soul Divergence's instructions. An odd expression crossed his face. "You said these items will enter the puppet?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Monarch Soul Divergence calmly confirmed. "That is correct. I have recently devised a way to use them. They will enhance the puppet's power by an entire level." Han Li pointed to two of the items. Silver chains once used to restrain the cadaver demon and the unremarkable stone tablet fragments recovered from the abyss of devilish chi. In the past, you mentioned refining devil essence diamonds into a weapon. But why these other two materials? I do not yet understand their application. The elder replied with a heavy tone. As you noted, I had considered refining the devil essence diamonds when you discovered them. While I previously intended them for a devil dragon blade, they are even more powerful if used for a different devil Dao treasure. Suitable as the puppet's killing move, the silver chains, infused with a trace of tailstar silver, can act as a protective shield. As for the stone fragments, I've just realized what they were a few days ago. After saying this with a heavy tone, Monarch Soul Divergence paused. Monarch Soul Divergence's voice eventually broke the silence and he deeply said, "Have you ever heard of divine flow clay?" Han Li looked at the seemingly ordinary stone in front of him with surprise. Of course I have. It is also known as illusory paste, a rare material used to refine complex magic tools, capable of creating any artifact. Its unique property is that it can restore any damage it suffers. Could this unremarkable stone really be it? I have always heard that divine flow clay is white and as smooth as jade. The old cultivator's voice resonated from the bamboo tube. Youngster Han, do not be alarmed. This is indeed divine flow clay. However, ancient cultivators often mixed it with other materials to refine something called Flexile spirit jade. Only a handful of people even recognized it. I came across references to it in an ancient cultivator's residence long ago. But I had nearly forgotten it until I saw this stone. It reminded me of what I once learned. Han Li frowned thoughtfully. Flexile spirit jade? How does it differ from regular divine flow clay? Monarch Soul Divergence chuckled faintly. You have discovered the difference yourself. Flexile spirit jade not only recovers from deformation, it can also absorb a portion of a cultivator's magical strike. If an attack condensed with spiritual power hits it, it will reduce more than half the damage. The only limitation is that it does not provide additional defense against direct attacks. Yet even with this, its value rivals that of auric essence. Han Li smiled at this revelation. His excitement barely contained. So Senior plans to weave the divine flow clay into the puppet's body? Precisely, Monarch Soul Divergence replied proudly. When the puppet's body is fused with tailstar silver and divine flow clay, defensive treasures will become unnecessary. There will be almost no one in the world capable of destroying it easily. Without hesitation, Han Li said, "Then let us proceed." Not so fast, the old cultivator reminded him. We must first refine the other parts of the puppet. I estimate that completing all of them will take about a year. Han Li nodded. With a wave of his sleeve, he swept the materials in a mist of azure light, then pulled out 8 jade boxes containing various materials. He began refining the next puppet part meticulously. Time passed swiftly in the eyes of cultivators. Han Li spent months immersed in the work, managing his mansion and his beasts through his massive ape puppets. His 6-winged Frost Centipedes, which he fed snow soul pills to every month, evolved dramatically. After molting, their bodies grew several times larger, gaining an additional pair of wings. Their speed and agility increased significantly, though the pill's effects had reached their limit, leaving the next evolution far in the future. One day, inside the hidden chamber, Han Li closed his eyes as a sparkling silver puppet floated before him. His fingers danced in the air, each connected to a different part of the puppet by golden threads. A bamboo tube, faintly glowing with green light, revolved slowly above its head. After an indeterminate amount of time, Han Li's fingers finally stilled, and he opened his eyes with a mixture of relief and joy. It appears there are no problems. The puppet has been fused perfectly. It is astonishing how smoothly everything came together. Monarch Soul Divergence's voice echoed from the tube. That puppet is the result of my research. With my instructions, there is no possibility of error. Now that the other parts are complete, we can proceed with the soul fusion. Han Li's brow furrowed. Will Senior reconsider? This is the first time using the soul division technique. If something goes wrong, it could affect your reincarnation. Will your soul persist after splitting? A soft chuckle came from the elder. I have dedicated most of my life to the art of puppets. I am willing for my soul to become one. Even without using the division technique, my life's end is approaching. I have also entrusted you with the remaining layers of the great development technique. I hope you will continue my legacy. Han Li exhaled slowly. Since Senior has resolved himself, I will not argue. I hope for your success. Suddenly, Monarch Soul Divergence laughed heartily, and a green light split the bamboo tube in half, revealing a small silhouette glowing with golden light. The tiny puppet, only a few inches tall, was intricately crafted in the likeness of a refined middle-aged man. Its eyes glowed green as it sat cross-legged. As it muttered an incantation, a speck of green light emerged from its mouth, growing to the size of a fist before returning. Han Li's lips parted in surprise. Though no sound escaped, the light intensified as the elder chanted faster, and Han Li had to activate his bright sight spirit eyes to follow the energy. A scream of agony from Monarch Soul Divergence shook the chamber as the green light split into two. The larger orb flew toward the silver puppet while the smaller one returned to the miniature man's mouth. When the light dimmed, the miniature figure's head slumped and its eyes grew dim. Han Li acted immediately. He commanded the puppet to open its mouth, drawing in the ball of green light with silver threads. The puppet glowed and trembled. With a sharp exhalation of purple flame, he sealed it in a dense layer of ice. Relief washed over him, though concern for the miniature man remained. So this is what dividing one's soul feels like. Incredible. Monarch Soul Divergence's cackling voice, weak but excited, emerged from the small puppet. Senior, are you all right? Han Li asked. Do not worry, came the reply, though I will not last long. I have half a month to witness the puppet's true power. Fuse my soul quickly. Han Li nodded and used a soul-concentrating talisman to stabilize the elder's remaining soul. A crimson talisman glowed and enveloped the puppet, drawing the residual energy into it. Monarch Soul Divergence expressed faint amusement and gratitude, his voice weak but spirited. Once the two halves of the bamboo tube rejoined and returned to Han Li, he focused on the puppet, thawing the ice with purple light and preparing for the final soul fusion. A nascent soul emerged, flowing into the puppet as Han Li channeled all his skill. 3 months later, Han Li emerged from the desolate island, streaking through the air in a brilliant azure light. His destination was Bitter Bamboo Island, a small and obscure isle surrounded by perennial blue mist. The island's master, Old Man Bitter Bamboo, was a mid-nascent soul cultivator, not widely famous on the mainland but respected, and feared, by certain mid and late nascent soul eccentrics. Overseas, his reputation was even greater. He had created over 365 glacial bitter bamboo swords using the divine mulberry tree at the center of a grand formation of over 10,000 trees. The formation was known for its wondrous design and had a reputation that endured for tens of thousands of years. Even a late nascent soul cultivator intruding upon the island would find their abilities greatly weakened. Even if a late nascent soul cultivator was to intrude, their abilities would be greatly weakened. One day, however, an uninvited guest appeared near the island. Light flashed in the distant sky, followed by a streak of azure tearing through the sky like a bolt of lightning. Arriving 50 kilometers away from an island covered in mist, the light faded away to reveal a youth wearing Confucian robes and carrying a bamboo tube on his back. Han Li looked down at the thick, rolling mist surrounding the island, but no matter how he tried, his vision could not penetrate its dense concealment. Raising his brow, he focused his spiritual sense and let a faint blue light flash from his eyes, probing carefully through the magical obstructions. After a few moments, his expression grew sullen. The grand myriad tree formation truly lives up to its reputation, he muttered quietly to himself. Even with my bright sight spirit eyes, I cannot see through their restrictions. A weak voice echoed from the bamboo tube on his back. Of course, this trip will be an excellent opportunity to test the puppet's strength. Old Man Bitter Bamboo is not only a suitable opponent, but you will also need the tail feathers of their black phoenix for the Triflame fan. Monarch Soul Divergence's voice had grown weaker ever since the soul division. Han Li's brow furrowed in concern. Are you certain you will be able to persist through this? A soft chuckle responded. Do not worry, With the aid of the soul-concentrating talisman, I shall not leave this world before witnessing the true might of the puppet." Satisfied, Han Li nodded. He turned his gaze downward, narrowing his eyes as he reached for his storage pouch. A pale middle-aged cultivator materialized beside him, appearing in a flash of azure light. This figure was crafted in exquisite detail, wearing yellow robes, with smooth, unblemished skin. Its face closely resembled the miniature puppet of Monarch Soul Divergence, with cold, emotionless eyes and a perfectly composed expression. Although Han Li had seen the puppet countless times before, he could not help but admire the craftsmanship once again. The Flexile spirit Jade, combined with Tailstar silver, had created an astonishingly lifelike shell for the puppet. The gray stone had taken on the color and texture of flesh, and the threads of spiritual sense running through it allowed it to move, speak, and even shift its appearance with eerie realism. Yet there was a limitation. Full-force attacks from a puppet of this magnitude required high-grade spirit stones, which were extremely rare. Han Li had managed to gather only a few. Based on his calculations, the puppet could expend one high-grade spirit stone every quarter of an hour while unleashing its maximum offensive potential. He turned to the puppet, his expression calm and unwavering. "Let's begin." The puppet lifted its hands gracefully, fingers spreading wide. Mists of blue light coalesced around its palms in an instant, forming into enormous, blinding spheres that radiated immense pressure. With a flick of its wrists, the spheres surged forward like piercing comets, vanishing deep into the mist. Han Li observed silently, expressionless, as the surrounding area trembled under the unleashed power. Moments later, a cataclysmic eruption shook the calm mist. Two towering pillars of wind shot skyward, violently scattering 300 meters of mist like a raging storm. The winds howled as if alive, their fury tearing across the expanse, forcing Han Li to momentarily step back and reassess the situation. Amid the chaos, he caught a faint glimpse of a large island below, shrouded in a barrier of shimmering green light. Dozens of streaks of multicolored light shot out toward him, evidence that the cultivators on the island had been alerted by the puppet's attack. Han Li's sharp eyes assessed the attackers carefully, noting the wide disparity in power. They ranged from foundation establishment to core formation stage, led by a late core formation cultivator. "Who are you two? Why have you, Yi? May I ask why you two seniors have paid our island a visit?" the old man demanded. At first, he intended to rebuke and interrogate them, but his assessment of Han Li's cultivation changed his tone abruptly. Upon realizing that Han Li possessed mid-nascent soul cultivation, similar to his master, he became wary. He could not pierce the veil of their power, and a cold sense of dread filled him. Han Li blinked slowly, a faint smile forming on his lips. "I have long heard of fellow Taoist Bamboo's renowned reputation, and I decided to pay a visit. Could you report my intentions to your master?" The old man, surprised by Han Li's composed demeanor, hesitated before nodding with a polite smile. "It is unfortunate. Our master entered seclusion several years ago and does not receive guests. If you have important matters, please present them to me first. The affairs of Bitter Bamboo Island are under my supervision." Han Li's tone remained calm as he inquired further. "Fellow Taoist Bitter Bamboo is in seclusion? What a pity. It will be acceptable. However, as I trust you to handle the situation, I heard your island is nurturing a black phoenix. Is this true?" The old man's heart skipped a beat, unease flickering across his face. "What does senior mean by that?" Han Li's expression did not waver. "It is nothing serious. I intend to refine a treasure that requires 3 of its tail feathers. I am willing to trade a grade 7 and 3 grade 6 demon cores for them. Will you consent?" He gestured, summoning 4 jade boxes that opened to reveal the brightly colored cores, one slightly larger than the rest. "Exchange these for phoenix feathers?" The old man looked confused. Han Li's proposal was far beyond his expectations, leaving him momentarily at a loss. Han Li's calm tone grew solemn. "The black phoenix is likely a grade 7 demon beast. This trade should be equitable." Demonstrating my sincerity. The old man's expression wavered. He shook his head slightly. "These demon cores are sufficient for the trade. However, I am not the one who can make this decision." Han Li's expression darkened, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. The old man's heart sank. Hastily, he explained, "Please do not misunderstand, Senior. I mean no disrespect, but the Black Phoenix is currently at a critical stage of cultivation. We cannot risk disturbing it." Han Li's gaze remained icy, unwavering. "I see, but I cannot forego those feathers. Perhaps I can offer another grade 7 demon core to compensate for the loss." He retrieved an additional jade box, placing it before them. The cultivators of Bitter Bamboo Island exchanged uneasy glances. The old man's brow furrowed, realizing the stakes involved. "Even so, I cannot make this decision lightly. Since this matter is extremely important, I will take the risk of disturbing the master and send a message for his instructions. We must wait for his reply." He knew that mishandling the situation could invoke severe consequences if they offended their master. Han Li's expression softened slightly. "Very well, we shall wait." Moments later, the old man's voice echoed through the island. "It appears a nascent soul stage fellow Taoist has arrived. Please forgive me for not coming out personally to greet you." He commanded his disciples, "Escort them to the Phoenix Pavilion. I shall join you shortly." Bowing respectfully, he turned to Han Li with a polite smile. "Seniors, please follow me. The master has agreed to meet you." Han Li scanned the island, his tone composed. "Good, I am curious to observe this renowned island." Descending with the puppet at his side, he prepared to navigate the complexities of the myriad tree formation. With the aid of the late nascent soul stage puppet, he was confident the formation would not hinder them. In an instant, they entered through the barrier. Inside, Han Li felt a wave of spiritual energy saturate his senses. He gazed at the towering trees, some growing over 100 meters, their variety astonishing and rare. Among them were a dozen unusually large mulberry trees, strange in hue with an otherworldly purple, arranged meticulously across the island, seemingly aligned with Taoist principles. Han Li furrowed his brow. "These are your island's divine mulberry trees. Yet I thought there was only one. How can there be a dozen?" The old man stole a few glances at the unknown cultivator and silently thought. Why has he never spoken or face moved? Could he possess a peculiar character? Since the topic of the tree wasn't a kept secret, the old man explained, "These divine mulberry trees all stem from the same roots, so they are considered to be the same." Han Li clicked his tongue in quiet awe, taking in the sheer magnitude of the revelation. "That is quite eye-opening. I have long heard that the divine mulberry tree is only surpassed by the 3 great divine trees," he said, his voice low with respect. The layers of spiritual energy radiating from the trees were unlike anything he had previously encountered. Each tree pulsating with a subtle life force that seemed to hum in harmony with the island itself. Following the old man, Han Li moved through a dense forest where the spiritual energy thickened with each step. The air shimmered faintly, carrying the pulse of life and mystical resonance. Suddenly, the scene before him shifted and distorted. Within a blink, the forest transformed into a colossal, kilometer-tall mountain, surrounded by numerous buildings of varying sizes, with cultivators moving swiftly between them. The terrain was breathtaking, a living testament to centuries of cultivation and careful design. "You may all attend to your own matters," the old man commanded the surrounding cultivators. Their movements ceased instantly, and they scattered away, leaving the path clear. The old man turned back to Han Li. "Seniors, please follow me." Han Li observed silently, following the old man as they climbed toward the mountain's summit. At the top stood a massive hall carved directly from the trunk of a giant tree. 4 cultivators in green armor stood at the entrance, halberds in hand, completely motionless like statues. Han Li raised an eyebrow at the sight. Though they were only Foundation establishment cultivators, the purity of their wood spiritual energy was exceptional, a level he had rarely seen for cultivators of their grade. Their weapons, imbued with the same spiritual resonance, glowed faintly in the light, signaling exceptional craftsmanship. Sensing Han Li's curiosity, the old man smiled and explained, "These 4 are our wood spirit soldiers, personally trained by our master with the aid of the divine mulberry tree's power. Though their cultivation is not advanced, their ability to coordinate in combat is remarkable. If the opportunity arises, You may offer them guidance. Han Li nodded once, acknowledging the old man's words without further comment. The old man sensed Han Li's indifference and tactfully dropped the matter as they entered the hall. Inside, the hall was simple but imposing. With a main chamber and a side room, a tall figure stood with his back turned. He wore long green robes, and his hair was snow white, cascading down his back like a waterfall. At the sight, the old man bowed deeply, his expression solemn. Han Li studied the figure and asked politely, "Are you old man Bitter Bamboo?" A chuckle escaped the green-robed man as he turned to face them. "That's correct. You are unfamiliar to me, though, since you dare inquire of my name. I assume you fellow Taoists are from the mainland?" Han Li's eyes narrowed slightly. The man's youthful face suggested someone barely in their 20s, but a faint layer of green spiritual energy shimmered around him, revealing the use of some advanced cultivation technique to halt aging. His composure and the faint emotion flickering in his eyes hinted at his formidable nature. Han Li replied politely, "In truth, we are not from overseas. My surname is Han, and this is my senior martial brother Li. I hope you will not take offense at my bold visit." Old man Bitter Bamboo examined them with a measured gaze and smiled. "I see. I would have welcomed you if circumstances allowed. Fellow Taoist Li's cultivation is profound. It is not something I can easily discern." "Quite enlightening." Han Li returned the smile. "Fellow Taoist Bitter Bamboo is modest. Your reputation resounds throughout the land." The green-robed man chuckled again. "Before we discuss anything further, please enjoy our island's unique mulberry tea." He clapped once, and several young female cultivators entered, bearing a tea set. They carefully steeped cups of faint green tea and left respectfully. Han Li looked down at the tea, sensing its spiritual energy. "Does this tea have a connection to your divine mulberry tree?" he asked, curiosity evident in his tone. The old man nodded proudly. "Quite perceptive. The tea is infused with the leaves of the divine mulberry tree. It is unparalleled in its ability to clear the mind. No other tea in the world can match its effects." Intrigued, Han Li used his spiritual sense to verify the tea's properties before taking a sip. Its taste was smooth, carrying a subtle essence of wood spiritual energy that awakened his senses. Old man Bitter Bamboo turned toward the silent puppet beside Han Li. "Fellow Taoist Li, do you not care for tea?" he asked, puzzled by the lack of reaction. The puppet responded calmly, its voice void of emotion. "Ever since I began fasting, I have not partaken in food or drink outside of my cave residence." A trace of annoyance flickered across the old man's face, quickly masked. Inwardly, he was cautious. Since this eccentric acts so boldly, could he be a late nascent soul cultivator? The thought brought an unexpected shiver of apprehension. Han Li finished his tea and placed the cup down, his eyes meeting the old man's. "Fellow Taoist Bitter Bamboo, I believe you understand the purpose of our visit. What do you think of my proposal?" Old man Bitter Bamboo's face darkened, and he frowned. "I will be honest, this exchange is difficult. The Black Phoenix is at a critical stage of growth. I cannot agree to the trade, no matter the number of demon cores offered. Its next breakthrough is uncertain, and any disturbance could be catastrophic." Han Li remained calm, unsurprised by the rejection. "Then you do not consent?" The old man chuckled wryly. "If I refused outright, I expect you would not depart empty-handed. How about this? Since we are both powerful cultivators, let us compare our techniques. If one of you can defeat me in combat, I may agree to the trade. If not," Han Li interjected smoothly, "if not, we will leave immediately and never mention this matter again." Old man Bitter Bamboo's mysterious smile widened. "Good, it is settled. I have not tested my strength in nearly a century. Which one of you shall face me?" Han Li commanded the puppet. "If acceptable, I will spar with you." "Very well. I am curious to witness Brother Li's techniques. Let us compare above the mountain." Old man Bitter Bamboo rose solemnly, prepared for the test of skill. Han Li and the puppet followed. The old steward who had remained silent could not hide his excitement. A nascent soul-level duel was a rare and formidable sight. Soon, Han Li floated 300 meters above the mountain, maintaining a calm expression. He positioned himself 100 meters from Old Man Bitter Bamboo and the puppet. 8 core formation cultivators watched nearby, eyes wide with anticipation. "Go!" Old Man Bitter Bamboo shouted, forming a complex incantation with his hands. A blinding light enveloped him as over 100 faint green flying swords materialized around him, forming a dense formation that radiated overwhelming pressure. The swords buzzed with energy, revolving in a precise formation, their intent hostile and focused. Han Li's expression froze as he recognized the mastery in their arrangement. Monarch Soul Divergence's voice echoed from the bamboo tube, tinged with excitement. "Youngster Han, he possesses considerable skill. This will allow the puppet to demonstrate its powers. Let us first test its defensive capabilities." "Understood," Han Li replied, eager to see the results. He instructed the puppet, which opened its mouth and expelled a palm-sized shield. In an instant, it expanded into a massive silver shield. The puppet then performed an incantation gesture, and talismanic symbols of multiple colors materialized, forming a rainbow barrier enveloping both the shield and the puppet's body. Old Man Bitter Bamboo's eyes widened. "Could you be Nanzhang of the Fierce Saint Sect? This resembles their spirit mark technique." Han Li commanded the puppet to respond curtly. "No." A subtle frown crossed the old man's face, though he did not press the matter. Instead, annoyance crept into his expression as he muttered an incantation. The flying swords trembled and surged forward, merging into 3-meter-long streaks that cut across the sky, forming a massive, dazzling ray of light. They all combined into a huge ray of light en route, producing an astonishing pressure and dazzling radiance. In this episode, we saw Han Li making incredible progress in his journey to refine the ultimate puppet. With guidance from Monarch Soul Divergence, he discovered the power of Divine Flow Clay and Flexile Spirit Jade, learning how these rare materials could absorb attacks and restore themselves, creating a nearly indestructible puppet body. We followed him as he spent months meticulously refining each part, watching his 6-winged Frost Centipedes evolve and grow more powerful, and finally witnessing the awe-inspiring moment of soul fusion, where Monarch Soul Divergence transferred part of his soul into the puppet, ensuring his legacy would continue through Han Li's work. After mastering the puppet's construction, Han Li ventured to Bitter Bamboo Island, testing the puppet's strength against both environmental challenges and the formidable defenses of the island. We saw him negotiating with the island's guardians, carefully balancing power, strategy, and diplomacy to acquire the Black Phoenix's tail feathers, a vital component for refining his next artifact. Finally, he met the legendary Old Man Bitter Bamboo, sampled the mystical mulberry tea, and prepared for a sparring match that would test both the puppet's power and his own tactical brilliance. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of Immortal's Journey to Immortality. If you enjoyed this episode or found it fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications for the latest episodes about Han Li's journey. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next videos.